Alright friends, so this video is a bit of a celebration of life for our 16-year-old indoor feral cat Joy, who passed away yesterday. So let's get into it. So Joy was a feral cat who started coming around our house probably 14 years ago, maybe 15 years ago now. We weren't sure exactly how old she was. And the rule at my house growing up was that we don't feed outside cats because then they just won't leave. And she started coming around our house around Thanksgiving time, and she was very skinny. It was really starting to get cold out, so eventually my parents allowed me to start feeding her because she was so skinny and she wouldn't leave. And at that time we had chickens, and she would come out with me when I was doing the chores with the chickens. I would take care of the chickens. That was actually before I was sick, because I got sick a little more than 13 years ago, or almost 14 years. So I was still able to do things like have chickens. We called her Dove at the time, actually. She would come out with me. She would walk on top of the chicken coop. She wouldn't like bother the chickens, but she would just like hang out with me while I did the chores. And she was this beautiful all black cat. Then what happened was when we opened the door and stuck our hand out, we could pet her. So we thought, okay, she must be semi-tame. And then we got her trapped by forgotten cats, got her spayed, and we decided to bring her inside. And at some point, I don't remember the exact timeline of this because it has been more than a decade and a half. It's been so long. At some point, we also took her to our vet, and we wanted to just get her checked out, and we told them like, look, she's feral. And they just like let her out of the carrier, and she just went insane in this small room. She ripped a painting off the wall because I think she thought it was a window, so she tried to jump at it. She tried to jump through the window to the outside, and also the window in the door that was probably at least 4 feet up, and she tried to jump through that. So they ended up having to take like a netting thing and trap her in the window and then sedate her for the rest of the appointment. But we tried to warn them. So anyway, after we had gotten her spayed, we brought her inside because it was so cold out. And again, we thought that she was not feral because we could open the door and pet her, but around that time we found out she was feral. So pretty much the whole time that we had her in the early years, she would just hide. So she was this indoor cat that we had in our house, but completely feral. And so, you know, we had brought her in because we have coyotes, foxes, owls, hawks. We have so many predators out there that could have gotten her. And so we had brought her in, but she just hid in her house. So she would come out to eat, and that was pretty much it. And then for probably the last decade, she's lived in my mom's room. In her bedroom, it's a really large room, and she just loved being in my mom's room, and she felt safest with my mom. And then at some point, she started letting my mom pet her and pick her up. And the older she got, she didn't necessarily get more domesticated, but in very specific instances, she would let us pet her. And then she just kind of started having trouble walking, so we could walk faster than her to pick her up. And she started kind of becoming deaf, so she couldn't hear us coming, and we think she was starting to go blind. And then she really ended up liking it. I think with the feral cat, it's just the fear of like seeing somebody come at you, but once you're picked up or once you're cuddling with the human, sometimes they really like it. And she would start purring. She smelled so good. I don't understand how, because she was feral, and usually feral cats have wild hormones, but she smells so good. I would just like bury my face in her neck and just get a good whiff. She smelled so good. And so yeah, like really towards the end of her life, she would come downstairs only around feeding time, and then we would have to carry her back upstairs to be fed up in her room because all the other cats would eat her food, so she'd have to be fed separately. And then we also had gotten some steps so she could get onto my mom's bed. Found those at Goodwill. Very good find. She started having a really hard time with jumping onto my mom's bed because it's a pretty high bed. And so yeah, she just kind of became my mom's best friend. She would sleep next to her in the bed. We don't really know why, but in the last several years, she would jam her nose up in my mom's nose while my mom was sleeping. So my mom now has had to sleep with a cover over her mouth and nose, and you know, just kind of was always in my mom's room. And so I think that this is going to hit my mom especially hard because I was the one who begged to bring Joy inside, and then once she came inside, she just really bonded with my mom and loved my mom most of all. Same with our dog Weldon. I begged to adopt him when we were fostering him, and then he just bonded with my mom. Yeah, she's kind of the last cat from my childhood. You know, she has been alive for more than half of my life. And so in the last several months, she's gone through different bouts of, you know, vomiting or having diarrhea, and we think, oh my gosh, this is the end. I mean, she was like 16 this year, and for a normal cat that's really old, but for a feral cat that's ancient. She was probably about a year old when she came to us. So to live outside for at least a year, she went through a lot, and usually feral cats just have been through so much that they don't live as long. And so we, you know, had brought her in, and she had a really good life. You know, she had 2 meals a day, and she had warmth, and she had love, and she had this cuddly bed she could sleep on. It was hard though, because my cat, my firstborn child, Aurora, who was my first official cat, we had to keep them separate. We also have to keep Aurora separate from Baby, because Baby and Joy would run when they see Aurora, and Aurora just has this like predatory kill instinct. She's not a very nice cat. And so she doesn't really get along with any cats, but she would legitimately try to kill Joy and Baby. So we like constantly had to keep everybody separate. And it was weird in the last couple years maybe, or last year, Joy was just so old that she like either wouldn't see Aurora coming or just like forgot to be afraid. And so she would just not really run when she saw Aurora. And then Aurora would like go after her and then skid to a stop in front of her, being like, why aren't you running? And then she would just kind of lose interest. So that was interesting, but we still kept them separate because Aurora is not very nice. And so, you know, Joy had gone through these periods of like, okay, we think this is the end. She's stopped eating for a little bit. She's vomiting. She has this diarrhea. We might need to put her down, and then she would rally and she would get a second wind. But that's what the wildest thing was. So while I'm on cephalexin and have physical energy, I have been able to do some yard work. And so in the area around where we have buried all of our other animals, we have 5 graves. Well, now we have 5. We had 4 graves. I was cleaning that area of, there were like some little tiny trees that had started growing, some pricker bushes. So I was cleaning that area. That was one of the last areas on our side hill here that I was cleaning. I just had this feeling when I went out there that I needed to do that to make room and to prepare the area. And I didn't even necessarily think of, you know, Joy, but I just had that feeling, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so weird. So while I was out there, my mom, because that morning Joy had been fine. Like, I'd picked her up, she started purring when I carried her upstairs to feed her. But while I was outside, I'd only been out there for probably about a half hour, and my mom said, hey, can you come inside? And I was like, sure. I thought it was maybe some paperwork or something that my mom needed me for, but she said that Joy had started vomiting and had diarrhea and had just gone in the corner. And usually when cats like hide, that can mean either that they're not feeling well or that it's the end. And then my mom also said she was really straining, and it almost looked like she was like in labor. That's how much she was straining, and it looked really painful, and that she was just, you know, not comfortable. And so she said, I think it's time. And so, yeah, called my vet to see if they could see us for an end of life. So we took her in, and on the wall, actually in the room, there was my favorite poem, Desiderata. I never know if I'm pronouncing that right. I really need to look up to see if I've had that pronunciation right, but that was just beautiful because that is one of my favorite poems. And yeah, it was just a very calm passing. And what was really incredible was Joy's timing. So it was the day after Christmas. So thank goodness it wasn't on Christmas or Christmas Eve. And it was right before it started sleeting. So actually while I was digging the grave, it did start sleeting. And then also I was still on cephalexin. So my dad actually isn't even in state while she died. And so we were like, oh my God, how are we gonna bury her? But because I'm on the cephalexin, I was actually able to dig the grave. And this was the first grave that I had ever dug. I've probably helped my dad maybe in the past, like before I got really sick, but this one I dug the whole grave myself. So that was really special to be able to do that for her. And so we buried her yesterday. Yeah, I mean, it's so sad because, you know, it's so bittersweet because we kind of knew that the end was going to be coming at some point because she is 16 and she's had these kind of bouts of not feeling well, but you know, it's always just really sad. But we had all the cats say goodbye to her. Baby was probably the cat who was closest to her. She would always do this. She would go up to her, she would give her a couple licks, and then she would kind of bite her neck. And it wasn't like a hard bite or anything, but she would like lick, lick, ang, ang, ang. And it was just like, girl. So I think she really was the one that was bonded closest to Joy, and she did give the body of Joy a couple of licks, like licked her fur before we took her to bury her. So that was really sweet. And then the kittens, you know, didn't know Joy super well again, because Joy just hangs out in my mom's room, but they got to say goodbye. And then Aurora went over and just hissed at her body. So I don't know if she has a trauma with death, but she was not having a good time. Yeah, so that was the story of Joy, and she almost was our longest living animal. Pumpkin, one of my childhood cats, she lived to 17, and so if she lived a couple more months, she might have made it to 17. Again, we're really approximating her age because we really don't know, but yeah, she lives such a long life. And so it's going to be really hard for my mom because she was obviously the closest to her, and you know, would sleep next to her every night. And so it's just a really hard time. When it rains, it pours, right? With my mom's cancer diagnosis and all the things kind of going on with that, and this now as well. It's just tough. So I don't have a ton of pictures or video of Joy because she was such a recluse, but I do have some, and so I'll have a little slideshow now of Joy so we can honor her and celebrate her life. And so my heart goes out to anyone else who is going through loss in this season as well. It's just a hard time of year for loss. So we will definitely miss you, Joy. Thank you for celebrating her life with me. Talk soon, friends. Bye. Hi, Joy. Can I pet you? Be pet? Oh, thank you, sweetie. Wow. Oh, you rubbed against me. Yes, she is. Good girl. Oh, what a sweet lady. You're gonna use the steps? Come on. Good girl. Oh my gosh, yes. That's my girl. Oh, funny. Come on, girl. You're still pretty. Come on. Good girl. Yay. Good job. So pretty. Good girl. Hi, Joy. Hi. Oh my God, you're so cute. Our old lady. She said she was calling old. So cute. Oh, Joy. You're being so sweet. It's like you're not even sure at all. Good girl. Thanks, Joy. What a sweetie.